The New Orleans Saints are one of the more interesting teams in the entire NFL, and I know I do say that a decent amount, but the Saints really, you don't know what they're going to do every single year. Ever since Drew Brees retired last year, it's been a confusing topic to even think about the Saints. Jameis Winston's coming back, but after a torn ACL, will he be able to sustain the pretty dang good season he was having? We don't know. Are they going to be able to produce more now that they're going to be able to get another wide receiver? We don't know. Is Kamara going to be out of jail? We don't know. And most importantly, why did they trade for 2 first-round picks this year? We don't exactly know. Now, it does make it a lot of fun for me because I get to speculate and see what I can do. But that being said, let's get into the New Orleans Saints. What's up, guys? I'm Tyler Coker, and I'm your host for today's episode of Today with Tyler. I hope you enjoy. As per usual, we will get into their free agents. Their free agents include Terron Armstead, who went off to sign, Marcus Williams, who went off to sign, jameis Winston, who came back, PJ Williams, the corner, Quan Alexander, the linebacker, and Deontay Harris, the wide receiver. So, out of the 3 most important ones, they did bring back 1, but they lost 2. Not great, but they do have the picks now to deal with that. Going into their offense, Jameis Winston last year was a great fit for New Orleans. He found himself almost immediately and really had what seemed to be an NFL caliber start to his season before tearing his ACL against the Buccaneers and then dancing right after. He definitely could be the answer, but they shouldn't put all their eggs into his basket because you never know, especially with someone like Jameis Winston, who's been very up and down, and we only saw something like 8 games of his actual success versus a couple seasons of his actual failures. They could really use a wide receiver because aside from Michael Thomas, who we didn't even get to see last year, they didn't really have anyone. Tre'Quan Smith and Marquez Callaway just aren't good enough to beat defenses, and while they are okay, I don't prefer them over other wide receivers that are coming out in this draft, and so don't be surprised if one of their first 2 picks in the first round are going to be a wide receiver. A big area for need in this team is their offensive tight end. They haven't really had a tight end since Jimmy Graham's prime and Jared Cook's prime, and I'd really like to see them have a consistent tight end to be able to almost ground this offense and make it less reliant on flying wide receivers and Jameis Winston throwing it over the defense. By getting a tight end, you make it much more mature, for lack of a better term, and to kind of let them settle. It's going to be especially important to let them settle now that Sean Payton's gone and their offensive mastermind, who they've had the entire Drew Brees era, isn't going to be there to be able to call the shots. The running back duo is great as long as Alvin Kamara is able to play this year, and I love Ingram and Kamara punching the defenses together, one on the out, one on the in. Their offensive line, however, has taken a tumble since its peak a couple years ago. Terron Armstead left, and Ryan Ramczyk was a lock at right tackle, but the interior line has kind of eroded. They suffered from injuries, but while the starting 3 were healthy, all of Andres Pete, Eric McCoy, and Cesar Ruiz really kind of struggled this year. In order to gain a dominating run game, which you might want to have in case Jameis Winston struggles a bit, you're going to need to help the interior line and be able to block for a little bit longer for Winston no matter what, since he does take a little bit longer in the pocket. Going into their defense, kept them in the playoff picture while Winston was hurt, and that's a really good sign for a defensive-minded coach coming into a team that's now his head coach role and being able to build off of it. New Orleans had a top 3 run defense in the entire NFL. Defensive ends Marcus Davenport and Cameron Jordan had great years. Defensive tackles Ty Shuttle and David Onyemata also supplied great amounts of interior help. And linebackers Demario Davis and rookie Pete Werner were stellar. The only really room for any improvement here would be the offensive line spot of Quan Alexander, who was a liability in the run game but could cover okay. New Orleans secondary, when not playing Tom Brady, was simply average, but they really turn it up when they're playing good teams. As with many teams in the NFL, cornerback 1 and safety 1 did really well, while their counterparts did poorly enough to even out the team. The good players for the Saints were Marshawn Lattimore at corner and their departed safety, Marcus Williams, and their counterparts were Malcolm Jenkins at strong safety and Paulson Adebo at corner. The secondary was effective and they could add to the unit and make this defense work extremely well versus just kind of hot and cold a little bit. So their team needs right now are wide receiver, guard, center, corner, and free safety, especially since, yes, they did sign Marcus May, but I'd like to see them have more safety depth, and I'll get into that with their ideal draft. An ideal draft for them that I have written down from the first 3 rounds are at pick 16, picking someone like Chris Olave if he's there, or picking some sort of Jameson Williams character, who is going to be able to complement Michael Thomas really well. Mike Thomas runs some good short routes. He's a physical wide receiver. He's tough. He's big. I like to see a fast guy with hands to be able to go in there and take the top off of defenses while they're worrying about Michael Thomas, because Thomas is going to run some great routes. But if you can have another route over top of him that's even better, that's going to be a really good offense, especially with jameis Winston, where he's going to hit the big one. And then going into pick 19, I'd like to see him take someone like Daxton Hill, the safety from Michigan. He is a raw talent for sure, and he's a little bit of a risk, but the Saints can afford to take that risk, and you might as well try it with someone who could end up being one of the best safeties in the entire NFL, but could also just be okay. And then in the second, I'm taking guard Sean Ryan from UCLA. He was a tackle this year, but kind of turned into a guard because it just fits his skill set better. And then in the third, I'm taking Kate Otten, the tight end from Washington. He's very good and would bring a lot of stability for that role. Will they do it? Probably not, but I'd like to see it just because getting a new tight end, as I've said, will settle this offense down, make it more mature, and ultimately just add a new dimension. So thank you for listening to the New Orleans Saints.